Multiple rounds of severe weather are bearing down on a massive stretch of this country right now, and the next several days are going to test a lot of communities across the United States. We are not talking about one isolated storm event. We are talking about a stubborn, relentless weather pattern that is going to cycle through severe thunderstorms, dangerous flooding, and a heat wave that will push temperatures to extremes not seen in years across parts of the northern plains. From the mid-Mississippi Valley all the way up into the Dakotas and Minnesota, millions of people are in the crosshairs of a weather setup that is genuinely dangerous, and it is going to demand your attention every single day this week. Large hail, damaging wind gusts, isolated tornadoes, flash flooding, and life-threatening heat are all on the table simultaneously. And that combination of hazards across such a wide geographic footprint makes this one of the more complex and consequential forecast setups we have seen in recent memory. Stay with me, because there's a lot to unpack here, and every single piece of it matters for your safety. Let's step into this forecast and walk through exactly what is coming, when it is coming, and what you need to do to stay safe no matter where you live. We are going to begin with today, which is Friday, because the threat is already in motion right now. A potent, large, low-pressure system is currently spinning up across Iowa and Minnesota, and it is already producing a widespread shield of showers and thunderstorms, stretching all the way from Oklahoma City back up into Minnesota. If you are anywhere in that corridor right now, you're already feeling the effects of this system. Heavy rain is falling, the atmosphere is loaded with moisture, and conditions are only going to deteriorate as we move through the afternoon and into the evening hours. This is not a wait-and-see situation. This is a right now, heads up, be aware situation for a very large portion of the central United States. The Storm Prediction Center has already upgraded the severe weather threat for two key areas today. Springfield, Illinois, and St. Louis, Missouri are now sitting under a slight risk of severe weather. That upgrade matters. It tells us that meteorologists at the national level are confident enough in the data to move this area into a more significant threat category. Damaging winds, large hail, and even a few tornadoes are all on the table for these communities this afternoon and this evening. If you live in or anywhere near St. Louis or Columbia, Missouri, today is absolutely not the day to be caught off guard. Have your weather apps open. Know where your safe shelter is. Have a plan before the storms even develop. Because once they fire, things can escalate quickly. Beyond that slight risk zone, there is a large marginal threat of severe weather that extends all the way from northern Illinois back to Denver, Colorado. That is an enormous geographic footprint, and it means that a significant portion of the central United States is at least at some level of elevated risk today. Even in a marginal threat zone, dangerous storms can and do produce severe weather. Do not let that lower risk designation lull you into complacency if you are in that broader area. Now, let us talk timing, because knowing when the threat peaks is just as important as knowing where it is located. The primary window for severe weather today is going to be from roughly 4 in the afternoon until 11 at night. That 4 to 11 time frame is when you need to be most alert, most plugged into your local weather information, and most ready to act. During the early afternoon, a lot of the convection that has been firing across Missouri should start to clear out, and that is actually what opens the door for something more concerning later in the day. As that morning convection clears, instability is going to rapidly build across the region. By around 4 in the afternoon, there will be a large area of highly unstable air stretching from Columbia, Missouri, back into Oklahoma City. Oklahoma, and that instability is the fuel that severe thunderstorms need to develop and become dangerous. Storm initiation is likely going to lag a little bit, with most of the significant convection expected to fire sometime between 6 and 7 in the evening near Springfield, Illinois, and back into St. Louis. There could even be activity near Springfield, Missouri. The primary threat with these storms as they develop will be damaging wind gusts, but rotating supercells capable of producing tornadoes are definitely part of the picture, particularly across central and eastern Missouri, western Illinois, and possibly into portions of northern Arkansas. That tornado threat window today looks to run from approximately 4 in the afternoon until around 9 at night. After 9, as these storms cluster together and transition more toward a squall line structure, the tornado threat should decrease, but the damaging wind threat will take over and become the dominant hazard. By around 9 in the evening, widespread thunderstorms are likely near St. Louis, and by just after 10, those storms will be organizing into a more linear mode, which means straight-line damaging winds become the story for the later hours of tonight. If you live anywhere from Springfield or Columbia back into the St. Louis metro area, please take today seriously. This is a conditional tornado threat, meaning the exact outcome depends heavily on how the morning convection evolves. If we see less convection during the overnight and morning hours, the atmosphere will be less disturbed, and that actually increases the chances of seeing discrete rotating supercells during the afternoon. The Storm Prediction Center has already noted that the tornado threat may be upgraded in future outlooks, depending on how that morning convection plays out. so keep checking back on your weather resources throughout the day, and severe thunderstorms are not the only danger today. There is a very dangerous flooding threat unfolding simultaneously across Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. We are talking about a large area where scattered flash flooding is going to be possible today. The heaviest rainfall is expected from the Minneapolis area back into Davenport, and the concern for major flooding potential in that corridor is very real. When you layer heavy rainfall from a training thunderstorm complex on top of already saturated soils, you get the conditions for life-threatening flash flooding. Some localized areas across Minnesota and Iowa could see anywhere from 4 to 6 inches of rain, and isolated totals may exceed 6 inches when this entire event is all said and done. If you live in low-lying areas, near streams, creeks, or in flood-prone neighborhoods anywhere from Minnesota down through Iowa and into Illinois, you need to be taking this flooding threat just as seriously as the severe thunderstorm threat. Turn around, do not drown. That is not just a slogan, it is survival guidance. No road is worth your life. Now, let us shift forward and talk about what happens as we move into Saturday, because this system is not done after today, not even close. As that low-pressure system tracks eastward and moves into central Illinois during the overnight hours, the threat of severe weather shifts with it. On Saturday, the primary concern for severe weather shifts to the east, focusing on a corridor from Huntsville, Alabama, back through Nashville, Bowling Green, and Louisville. These areas are under an elevated threat of severe weather, meaning all hazards are once again on the table. Damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes are all possible across this region on Saturday. Just like today, the tornado threat on Saturday is conditional. It depends on how much convective activity we see during the morning hours. If Saturday morning stays relatively quiet in terms of storm development, the afternoon hours could see the atmosphere prime itself for discrete rotating supercells. The areas I'm watching most closely for tornado potential on Saturday include Indianapolis, Dayton, Ohio, Cincinnati, Lexington, Kentucky, and back into Louisville. If you live in any of those cities or the surrounding communities, Saturday afternoon and evening are when you need to have your tornado action plan ready and your means of receiving warnings confirmed. A battery-powered weather radio, a reliable weather app with push notifications, or knowing where the outdoor warning sirens are in your area can make all the difference when storms move fast. The primary threat on Saturday is going to be straight-line damaging winds. We are talking about the potential for wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour. That level of wind can snap trees, take down power lines, damage roofs, and turn unsecured outdoor objects into dangerous projectiles. Large hail is less of a concern across the Ohio Valley region on Saturday, but it cannot be completely ruled out. The damaging wind threat will be most significant as storms cluster together and move through areas like Bowling Green, southwest Ohio, near Cincinnati and Dayton, and then eastward toward Columbus. During the evening hours on Saturday, the wind threat extends across eastern Kentucky as well, and the Birmingham, Huntsville, and Chattanooga corridor should expect a stormy evening with the damaging wind concern continuing to be the headline threat. The flooding threat does not go away on Saturday either. Much of the Ohio Valley and the southeast will continue to see elevated rainfall with flash flood potential during the day on Saturday and into the overnight hours. Even by Saturday afternoon, there will be localized significant flooding possible across Ohio and Indiana. Stay alert throughout the entire day on Saturday if you are in these areas. Weather awareness is not just a morning check, it needs to be ongoing throughout the day. Then by Sunday, this entire system continues its march to the northeast. The low pressure center will likely be tracking up toward Lake Erie by Sunday afternoon, and that positioning could spark another round of severe weather across parts of western Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and potentially into eastern Virginia and Maryland. The threat on Sunday looks to be primarily a damaging wind, and maybe some isolated small hail concern, but with a strong low pressure system still in play, an isolated tornado cannot be completely ruled out. This will be worth monitoring as we get closer to Sunday. The flooding concern on Sunday shifts into the Great Lakes region, with the primary areas of concern being around Lake Erie and Lake Ontario as that low drags heavy moisture northward. Now, let us zoom out and talk about what is coming at the start of next week, because this is where the forecast gets genuinely significant in a different and perhaps more dramatic way. As we cross into early August, the weather pattern across the United States is going to shift in a very meaningful way. The heat dome that spent the month of July firmly entrenched over the southwestern United States is going to expand eastward into the Great Plains. That expansion does two major things. First, it drives temperatures in the northern plains to extreme levels. Second, it shifts the nation's primary storm track northward, setting the stage for renewed and potentially significant severe weather across the northern plains and the Midwest by Sunday into Monday. Let us start with the heat, because the numbers here are genuinely dangerous. As we move into Sunday, temperatures across North Dakota and South Dakota are going to skyrocket into the triple digits. And to be clear, these are actual air temperatures, not heat index values. We're talking about actual thermometer readings pushing into the 100-degree range and beyond. Some areas in the far northern plains could approach 110 degrees. The level of heat in the northern plains is not just uncomfortable, it is life-threatening, especially for vulnerable populations, including the elderly, young children, outdoor workers, and anyone without access to reliable air conditioning. Heat exhaustion and heat stroke are real dangers at these temperatures. Please take the heat warnings seriously when they are issued. Stay hydrated, stay indoors during the hottest parts of the day, check on your neighbors and family members, and never leave pets or children in parked vehicles. By Monday, that heat wave expands further. Dallas is forecasted to reach 104 degrees on Monday. Kansas City, Oklahoma City, and communities across the central and southern plains are going to be dealing with an extremely hot stretch of weather over the next 7 days. Tuesday will be very hot across the central and southern plains. And then through Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, that heat is likely to remain focused across the southern plains. The good news is that areas across the northern plains and the Midwest will start to see some relief from the heat by mid to late week as the pattern shifts. But for Kansas City, Dallas, and Oklahoma City, there is no quick relief in sight. This is going to be a prolonged and dangerous heat event that will last through much of the first week of August. Now, while that heat dome builds to the south, the storm track shifting northward is going to set up a potentially significant severe weather event across the northern plains early next week. A new shortwave trough is going to dive into the northern plains, and the combination of very strong low-level winds and significant wind shear will create the ingredients for dangerous and potentially long-track tornado development. The area of greatest concern for this event on Monday includes Minnesota, North Dakota, and eastern South Dakota. We're not talking about a marginal garden variety severe weather event here. The setup supports the potential for an isolated significant tornado or two across this region. Northern Minnesota and eastern North Dakota are the areas I am watching most closely, with eastern South Dakota also in the picture. If you live in any of these areas, Monday is going to require your full weather awareness. Have multiple ways to receive warnings. Know where your safe shelter is. Talk to your family about what to do if a tornado warning is issued for your area. A significant tornado is a life-threatening event, and the time to prepare is always before the storm arrives, never during it. The good news with this system is that it looks to be a relatively short-lived event in terms of duration. The severe weather setup across the northern plains is likely to be a one-day event on Monday, after which the system is expected to weaken and move northward into Canada by Tuesday. But that one day could be a very significant day for the communities in that zone, and it absolutely warrants your attention. If you have been with this channel for a while, you know that severe weather preparedness is something we talk about constantly, and for good reason. Having a plan, knowing your escape routes, knowing where to shelter, and having backup power and communication tools ready can be the difference between a close call and a catastrophe. Power outages during severe weather events are common, and being able to keep your devices charged, your medical equipment running, and your essential appliances operational is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Whether it is a severe thunderstorm, a tornado, or a prolonged heat event straining the electrical grid, preparedness is not something you should wait to think about. Start now before the next storm arrives. Now, let us also address the tail end of this forecast period, because the pattern beyond Monday is not going to be quiet either. By the middle and end of next week, severe weather is expected to rejuvenate across parts of the Midwest and the Great Plains as the pattern continues to evolve. Exactly where and when those threats materialize is still too early to pinpoint with precision, but the general signal is clear. The first week of August is going to be active, and it is going to demand consistent weather awareness from a very large portion of the country. And then there is one more thing worth mentioning as we look ahead to the second week of August, and it is something that bears watching closely. Multiple model runs, including several runs of the GFS model over the past day, have been picking up on the potential for a tropical storm or even a hurricane to develop in the Atlantic Ocean as we move into the first and second week of August. I want to be clear that it is still too early to say with certainty whether this tropical development will actually materialize, or if it does, what track it might take. But the fact that the GFS has shown this signal consistently across several model runs is a trend that we need to monitor. Tropical activity can add another significant layer of weather hazard for coastal and inland communities alike, and as we get closer to the second week of August, this is something we will be watching and updating you on regularly. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss those updates when they become more relevant. Let me pull this all together and give you the big picture for the week ahead, because it is a lot, and you deserve a clean summary of what is at stake. Today, Friday, the severe weather window runs from 4 in the afternoon to 11 at night, with the tornado threat concentrated from around 4 until 9 and the damaging wind threat extending through the overnight. Flash flooding is a simultaneous concern across Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin, with the potential for localized rainfall totals of 4 to 6 inches or more. On Saturday, the severe weather shifts east into the Ohio Valley and the southeast, with damaging winds up to 70 miles per hour possible, a conditional tornado threat across Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky, and continued flash flooding concerns across the Ohio Valley and southeast. On Sunday, the remnant low tracks toward Lake Erie, bringing scattered severe weather to portions of the mid-Atlantic and possibly the Great Lakes. And then next week, a potent new system dives into the northern plains, bringing the potential for significant tornadoes to Minnesota and the Dakotas on Monday, while simultaneously an extreme heat wave grips the Great Plains with temperatures approaching or exceeding 110 degrees in some areas. This is a week of weather that demands your sustained attention. It is not one event and done. It is a sequence of events that will affect millions of people across a broad geographic footprint, and the hazards involved include some of the most dangerous phenomena that severe weather has to offer. Please stay plugged in, stay informed, and please do not take any of these threats lightly. As always, thank you so much for spending your time here with us today. If you found this forecast helpful, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button below and turn on your notifications so you are always alerted when new forecasts and updates are posted. We are going to continue tracking every one of these threats as they evolve and bring you the most current and accurate information available. And do not forget, there is a 24/7 live weather stream available, so you can always stay connected to what is happening across the country in real time. Stay safe out there, stay weather aware, and we will see you in the next update.